Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin. Thank you for tuning into our podcast entitled The Secret War on Cash, where we take a hard look at some of the changing dynamics in our financial markets and our economy. I have with me today our resident rock star, Chris Agelastos. Good morning, Chris. How are you today?
Hey, great. Good to see you. Good to be back.
You look really good behind camera, and if anybody should see Chris off camera, he's just getting over COVID, so stay away from him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for
He's
sure.
got He's got the vid. So, well, thanks for being with us today, Chris. We'll get right into it. Thanks for joining us, especially. I know you're just on the tail end of being sick, and you're a trooper here to be with us. Today, we're going to talk about American households. We're going to talk about the economy. Going to talk about some of the things that we're all dealing with, we're all living with day to day. This first article we're going to take a look at is ex-fast food CEO Andy Puzder rips economist U.S. recession read by stating people are suffering. And I think it's a number one, a very bold title and a very bold statement. However, that being said, I believe it's a completely accurate title and a completely accurate statement as well. He is the former CEO of CKE Restaurants, which was the Carl's Jr. franchise. The Yum brand fell under that, Hardee's, etc. And I'll let you get into the article here, but as I read through it, just to kind of touch on it, like I say, I was spot on. I mean, he looks at the things that we've been talking about in this podcast for months and months now. We watch, the talking heads, the pundits out there financial pundits who are suggesting that, giving us all the reasons to hope, which we all want hope, that the economy is good and that things are going the right direction. However, as they cite these statistics, the reality of reality tells a whole different story. And I believe at one point he says, and I really kind of like this part of his statement here. He says, your gut is telling you something different. I'm probably paraphrasing that a bit. But tell us a little bit more about what his slant is on here and the accuracy or not of what he's saying.
Well, I like the example he's using here because he's saying that even though the metrics, the numbers guys say, well, technically maybe we're not in a recession. He references, well, does that really matter if people don't feel well? And I'm just coming off COVID, like you said here, and I'm thinking to myself, well, last Friday, I knew I wasn't feeling well. I was coming down with something. Saturday, I felt horrible. I took a COVID test. It said I was negative. Well, lo and behold, Sunday, I take another test, and now it's positive. Now, either way, my body was telling me, you're sick, whether it's COVID or not, take care of yourself, rest, right? Take medicine, do what you got to do to get through this. And I think that's sort of what's going on in the economy right now. People are hurting. So whether or not the analysts want to technically say we are or aren't in a recession, at the end of the day, how is it affecting the average person? And people feel this. The stock market is shaky. We've seen that over the last week. We all know that inflation is a big problem. People have used up their savings. So that little bit of savings that some people were able to build up during the COVID crisis and when we were getting some supplemental income from the government and whatnot, that's all been used up. People have been using credit cards for the last couple of years, and while they built up those balances, interest rates went up, right? So now they're paying even more interest on those debts than they were beforehand. Wages are stagnant. People are not seeing their income increase to even come close to offsetting the rising costs. And the bottom line to all of that is people don't have as much money to spend. So if we're feeling the pain, we're cutting back, we don't have the money, we're not going to spend it as loosely as we once did, businesses are going to suffer and growth will slow down. So call it a recession or not, we're all feeling the pain of it.
Yeah, actually, your COVID example, I think that's spot on, a very good example. In that, as you talk about people depleting their savings and the various other things that have are indications as to just the struggle and the suffering that the average household has right now. I was just reading today as well another article where the average American is carrying over $6,000 in credit card debt, and one expert being cited there is saying that people are just absolutely strapped. I mean, they are struggling right now, and they are a victim of this circumstance of today's economy. And as we've talked about before, the concern there being is like, it doesn't seem as though anybody's really, meaning the powers that be, that might be able to have some kind of an influence or, implement some kind of a change. They're not addressing the issue because they're too busy telling us everything's all right. And that's probably not going to change either, Chris, as we head into an election season where there's going to be certainly some, as far as the economy goes, a lot of window dressing, trying to make things look better than what they really are. And so that leads into this next article here about how rising household debt and shrinking incomes are setting the stage for a recession, this top economist says. And it kind of, it really, even though it's a little different approach to what the article we just read and the comments by Andy Puzder, the bottom line is it's really the same dynamic. And as you start looking through here and you look at the actual facts and figures, the household debt, the debt balances people are carrying, the delinquency on these credit cards, like we just mentioned a moment ago, people are carrying over on average $6,000 in that. We've talked about auto loans. I mean, there's so many symptoms here of a unhealthy economy and an unhealthy financial landscape or horizon. When is enough going to be enough, Chris? Or when might we expect to see either somebody deal with this, or are we going to finally see something happen where the plug is pulled or the rug is yanked out from underneath us?
I think we probably have to accept the fact that to some extent it's up to us to fix our own situations or deal with our situation as best we can, because I really haven't seen too many instances in my lifetime where the government has been able to just come in and fix everything. Usually, in my experience, what happens is they just mess it up a bit more, or they kick the can down the road and put the burden on the next generation. You mentioned, household debt is at an all-time high. What I found interesting in this article too is if you add up the auto loans and the credit card debt, that amounts to about $3 trillion, which is similar to the number that we saw in predatory loans during the 2008 debt crisis. So this is a big problem. I mean, when you say credit cards, maybe people have a hard time, really quantifying how big of an issue that is. But this is a lot of debt, $3 trillion. So and the increase in delinquencies it's starting to move through the roof. And delinquencies are 90 days and longer out that people haven't been able to make their payments. So if we know that wages are flat, unemployment is going up, people are already struggling to be able to keep up, or they're not keeping up with their credit card and auto loans. This is all a recipe for disaster. I mean, I think we're certainly going to see a volatile year. And again, I don't mean to be negative. I'm an optimist by nature, but you just kind of have to look at the facts. And so, I mean, even in my own situation, which I'm probably doing, better than a fair amount of the population. And I'm still, ask my kids over the last several months, right? I'm harping on them for every little extra dollar that they spend. I mean, we've drastically trimmed eating out, whether it's regular restaurants or fast food restaurants, which are also crazy expensive now. I know we've talked about in recent episodes, $12 to $15 for a value meal.
Right.
So, everybody is just going to have to deal with this. I mean, I certainly think we can get through it. But is it going to be 6 months of pain or 2 years of pain? That's really, really hard to predict. And that's where I just think people need to sort of do an assessment, take care of their own house. And if we all can do that to some degree as a whole, we should be better off. But this is where, knowledge is power, and don't just stick your head in the sand and pretend like the government's going to come through and wave a magic wand and make everything okay, because I highly doubt that's going to happen.
Right. Well, and that with the topic of debt in the 3+ decades I've been here at Swiss America and talking about this issue, and debt comes up all the time. And for many years, especially with credit card debt, you talk to people and there was the conversation oftentimes would lend towards people shouldn't be spending money on credit cards and people shouldn't be getting in debt, and which is very true. And there is no question Americans and our economy has been abused we'll call it the privilege of debt over the years. The one thing I will say though, and again, 3+ decades of doing this, one difference now is that we have covered this quite frequently on our podcast, that the credit card debt that many households are incurring at this time, it's not to go buy a new handbag or the latest technology. Their credit card debt is climbing because they're trying to put food on the table, which is why they've had to raid their pension or retirement accounts in some instances, or deplete their savings. And so it goes back to what these experts are now talking about, is that this is a real pain and hurt that is being inflicted upon these people, and what they're really most guilty of is just trying to put food on the table or survive. And that's where we hope that there is something, to your point, optimistically speaking, that changes or some kind of a shift. I don't know if that happens by way of an election that comes up, or if there is by some miracle there's some kind of a reboot to the economy that doesn't devastate us and gets us on the straight and narrow. Who knows? Time will tell, and we'll continue to cover it. So thank you, Chris, for that. And for those of you tuning in, if you are not subscribed to this podcast, please do so. And if you'd like more information about what is going on in the economy and you have not yet received our report entitled The Secret War on Cash, you can do so by calling us at 1-800-289-2646 or visit us online at SwissAmerica.com. If you have questions about retirement, maybe how to put that into some gold for your future and for better safekeeping, you can do that as well. Thanks for tuning in. We look forward to talking with you next as we cover more topics like this. And Chris, hope you get better and get that COVID out of your system. And we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks a lot.